3 years ago, on a Tuesday morning, I watched a 54-year-old man walk into my clinic for what he thought was a routine checkup. He looked healthy. He felt healthy. He told me he hadn't missed a single day at the gym in 4 years. He ate clean. He didn't smoke. He slept 7 hours a night. He did everything right. Or so he thought. I ran his blood work. I ordered an echocardiogram. I put him on a stress test. And within 40 minutes, I was sitting across from him, looking at results that made my stomach drop. His left ventricle was enlarged. His arterial walls were thickening in a pattern I'd seen hundreds of times before, but almost never in someone who exercised this consistently, who ate this well, who appeared this healthy on the surface. I asked him one question: walk me through your morning, from the moment your eyes open to the moment you leave the house, every detail. He laughed. He thought I was joking. He said, "Doc, my mornings are fine. It's the healthiest part of my day." 14 minutes later, after he described his morning routine step by step, I understood exactly what was destroying his heart, and he had no idea. None. Zero. He thought he was protecting it. I've been a practicing cardiologist for over 19 years. I've treated more than 3,000 patients with cardiovascular disease. I've held people's hands while telling them their hearts were failing. I've stood in operating rooms at 2 a.m. trying to save someone who thought they were perfectly fine 12 hours earlier. I've seen what heart disease looks like from every possible angle. And I'm telling you right now, what I'm about to share in this video is something most cardiologists don't talk about openly, not because it's controversial, not because the science is unclear, but because it's so simple, so mundane, so woven into everyday life that it doesn't feel like it belongs in a serious medical conversation, but it does. Because this one morning mistake is silently damaging the hearts of millions of people every single day. And the worst part is, many of them think they're being healthy while they do it. Before I go any further, I need you to do something. In the comments below, write down what your morning looks like. Not the idealized version, not what you tell your doctor during your annual physical, what you actually do. The real version. Because what I'm about to explain only works if you're honest with yourself about your own habits. Let me tell you what happened to that 54-year-old patient. His name doesn't matter. What matters is that his story is identical to the story of millions of people watching this right now. He was a good man doing what he believed were good things, and those good things were quietly, invisibly, systematically weakening the most important organ in his body. After I identified the pattern in his morning routine, and we made specific targeted changes, not dramatic changes, not expensive changes, not changes that required medication or surgery, just adjustments to timing and sequence, his cardiac markers began improving within 8 weeks. Within 6 months, the enlargement of his left ventricle had measurably reduced. His arterial wall thickness was trending in the right direction for the first time in years. He told me, sitting in my office with tears in his eyes, "I almost destroyed my heart trying to take care of it." That sentence has stayed with me every single day since. Because he's not an anomaly, he's the norm. He represents the majority of adults over 40 who are unknowingly compounding cardiovascular stress every single morning through habits they genuinely believe are beneficial. Since that case, I've made it my mission to study what I now call the morning cardiovascular window, the first 90 minutes after waking, when your heart is more vulnerable than at any other point in the 24-hour cycle. I've reviewed over 200 clinical studies. I've analyzed data from cardiac events across multiple hospital systems. I've personally interviewed hundreds of patients who survived sudden morning cardiac emergencies. And what I found was disturbing. Not just medically disturbing, but personally disturbing, because I realized I was making some of these mistakes myself. If you're over 40, or if someone you love is over 40, I am asking you to subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that subscribe button immediately, because the information I'm about to share isn't available in a single easy-to-find place anywhere else. And if you scroll past this, if you tell yourself you'll come back later, the algorithm will bury this video, and the person who needed to see it, maybe you, maybe your parent, maybe your partner, will never find it again. Your subscription right now is how we make sure this reaches the people whose lives depend on it. Let me start by explaining something that changes everything about how you should think about your mornings. Most people believe that waking up is a passive, gentle process. You open your eyes, you stretch, you start your day. It feels calm, it feels routine, it feels safe, it is none of those things. The moment you wake up, your body initiates what is arguably the most aggressive physiological transition it goes through in any 24-hour period. And I don't use the word aggressive lightly. Here's what happens inside your body the instant consciousness returns. Your hypothalamus, the master control center of your brain, triggers what's called the cortisol awakening response. Within 20 to 30 minutes of opening your eyes, cortisol levels surge by 50 to 75% above your baseline. This isn't a gentle rise. This is a hormonal explosion designed to mobilize your entire system from a state of deep rest to full operational readiness. Simultaneously, your sympathetic nervous system fires up aggressively. Adrenaline and noradrenaline flood your bloodstream. Your heart rate accelerates. Your blood pressure climbs sharply. Blood vessels that were relaxed during sleep begin to constrict, increasing peripheral resistance throughout your entire circulatory system. Your blood itself has changed overnight. After 7 to 8 hours without any fluid intake, you're significantly dehydrated. Blood volume has decreased, viscosity has increased, platelets have become stickier and more prone to aggregation. Your blood has essentially thickened into a state that dramatically favors clot formation. And your heart? Your heart has been operating in low gear all night. Minimal demand, minimal output, slow, steady, comfortable rhythm. And now, in the span of minutes, it's being asked to shift from idle to high performance while pumping thicker blood through tighter vessels against rising pressure. This is why the medical literature consistently shows that the hours between 6 a.m. and noon are the most dangerous window for cardiovascular events. Heart attacks are 40% more likely in the morning. Strokes are 49% more likely. Sudden cardiac death peaks between 6 and 10 a.m. Fatal arrhythmias cluster in the early morning hours. This isn't coincidence. This is biology. Your body is at its most cardiovascularly vulnerable during the morning transition, every single day. Now here's where it gets critical. Most people don't just wake up and sit quietly while their body navigates this dangerous transition. They add stressors on top of it. They pile behaviors onto this already maxed out system that amplify the danger exponentially. And the number one morning mistake, the one I see destroying hearts more consistently than any other, the one that almost ruined the health of my 54-year-old patient, is this: consuming caffeine, specifically strong coffee, as the very first thing that enters your body after waking up. Before water, before food, before your cardiovascular system has had any chance to stabilize from the overnight transition. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, coffee? Really? That's your big revelation? Everyone drinks coffee in the morning. Yes, everyone drinks coffee in the morning, and the rates of cardiovascular disease, hypertension, arrhythmias, and morning cardiac events continue to climb year after year. And almost no one connects these two facts because coffee feels so normal, so universal, so harmless that questioning it feels almost absurd. But I'm not asking you to stop drinking coffee. I'm asking you to understand what coffee does to a cardiovascular system that is already in crisis mode, and why the timing of your first cup might be the single most important change you ever make. Here's the physiology, and I want you to really absorb this because it's the key to understanding why this matters so much. When you drink coffee on an empty stomach, first thing in the morning, before food, before water, before anything else, caffeine is absorbed into your bloodstream at a dramatically accelerated rate. There's nothing in your stomach to buffer it, no food to slow the absorption, no water to dilute the concentration. Pure caffeine hits your bloodstream like an injection, reaching peak plasma concentration in as little as 15 minutes. Now think about what caffeine does. It's a powerful sympathomimetic stimulant. It triggers the release of additional adrenaline and noradrenaline from your adrenal glands. It blocks adenosine receptors, which are the receptors responsible for keeping your heart rate moderate and your blood vessels relaxed. It directly stimulates cardiac muscle cells, increasing both the rate and force of contraction. It causes vasoconstriction, narrowing blood vessels throughout your body and driving blood pressure even higher. Remember what's already happening in your body at this moment. Cortisol is surging. Adrenaline is already elevated. Blood pressure is climbing. Blood vessels are constricting. Your blood is thick and sticky from overnight dehydration. Your heart is working harder than it will at any other point today just to manage the basic transition from sleep to wakefulness. And then you pour a concentrated stimulant directly into this already overloaded system. The effect is not additive, it's multiplicative. Caffeine doesn't just add a little extra stress on top of what's already there. It amplifies the existing stress response dramatically. Blood pressure can spike an additional 20 to 40 points within minutes of that first cup. Heart rate can increase by 15 to 30 beats per minute. The combined vasoconstriction from cortisol, adrenaline, and caffeine together creates a level of peripheral resistance that forces your heart to work exponentially harder. For a young, healthy cardiovascular system with elastic arteries and wide-open coronary vessels, this is tolerable. Uncomfortable maybe, but tolerable. The system has enough reserve capacity to absorb the hit. But for anyone over 40, and especially for anyone over 50 or 60, this is a completely different equation. Arteries have lost elasticity. They can't expand to accommodate sudden pressure spikes the way they once could. Coronary arteries may have plaque buildup that hasn't caused symptoms yet, but significantly reduces blood flow capacity under stress. The heart muscle itself may be subtly thickened or stiffened from years of elevated blood pressure that was never quite high enough to trigger alarm bells. And this is where it becomes truly dangerous. When you combine the morning physiological storm with the caffeine shock of concentrated coffee on an empty stomach, you create conditions that are almost perfectly designed to destabilize vulnerable arterial plaque. Let me explain what that means. Most people think heart attacks happen because arteries slowly close over time, like a pipe gradually filling with gunk until it's completely blocked. That's not how most heart attacks actually occur. Most heart attacks happen when a plaque deposit inside a coronary artery that has been sitting there quietly for years, sometimes decades, suddenly ruptures. The cap on top of the plaque cracks open. The contents of the plaque are exposed to the bloodstream. Your body interprets this as a wound and sends platelets rushing to the site to form a clot. And because your blood is already thick and sticky from dehydration, and because platelets are already hyperactive from the morning hormonal surge, that clot forms fast. It grows fast. And within minutes, it can completely block the artery. Blood flow to part of the heart muscle stops. That section of muscle begins to die. This is a myocardial infarction, a heart attack. The sudden blood pressure spike, the intense vasoconstriction, the sheer force of blood rushing through narrow vessels at high pressure, these are exactly the mechanical forces that cause vulnerable plaque to rupture. And the morning caffeine bomb, hitting an already stressed system, provides precisely these forces at precisely the wrong moment. I've reviewed case after case of patients who experienced cardiac events within 45 minutes of their morning coffee, patients who had no idea they had coronary disease, patients who would have told you they were healthy, patients whose plaques had been building silently for years, causing no symptoms, raising no alarms, until one morning when the combination of biological stress and caffeine pushed the system past its breaking point. My 54-year-old patient was drinking 2 double espressos every morning, no water first, no food first, just straight concentrated caffeine into a dehydrated, hormonally charged, vasoconstricted cardiovascular system. Every single day for 4 years. And his heart was paying the price in ways he couldn't feel until the damage had become visible on imaging. But it's not just about heart attacks. The chronic effects are equally devastating and far more insidious. When you repeatedly spike your blood pressure and heart rate every morning through this caffeine on empty stomach pattern, you're creating what cardiologists call repetitive hemodynamic stress. Think of it like bending a piece of metal back and forth. Once or twice, nothing happens. But bend it the same way thousands of times, and eventually it weakens, cracks, and breaks. Every morning, spike in blood pressure damages the delicate endothelial lining of your arteries just a little bit. Every surge of pressure stretches arterial walls just beyond their comfortable range. Every episode of intense vasoconstriction, followed by relaxation, creates micro-trauma that triggers inflammatory responses. Over months and years, this repetitive damage accumulates. The arterial walls thicken defensively, they become stiffer, they develop deposits of cholesterol and calcium at the sites of repeated injury. The very thing you're doing every morning is accelerating the development of the arterial disease that will eventually cause the catastrophic event you never saw coming. This is why I call it the silent damage. You don't feel it. Your morning coffee makes you feel alert, energized, focused, alive. It feels like it's helping you. Every sensation you experience tells you this is a positive habit. But beneath those pleasant sensations, at the level of your arterial walls and cardiac muscle and coronary blood flow, the damage is accumulating one morning at a time. Write in the comments right now. Do you drink coffee before water in the morning? Do you drink it before eating anything? How many cups? How strong? Be completely honest. No judgment. This is about awareness, and awareness is the foundation of every meaningful change. Now, I want to be very clear about something because I know there are people watching this who are already defensive, who are already thinking of the studies that show coffee has cardiovascular benefits, who are ready to cite research about polyphenols and antioxidants and reduced risk of certain diseases. I know those studies, I've read them, many of them are valid. Coffee does contain beneficial compounds. Moderate coffee consumption is associated with certain health benefits in certain populations. But here's what those studies don't tell you. They don't account for timing. They don't separate people who drink coffee after hydrating and eating from people who drink it as the absolute first thing on an empty stomach. They don't isolate the impact of caffeine during the specific morning cardiovascular danger window. They report averages across entire days, entire populations, entire patterns of consumption without granularity about the most critical variable, which is when and how the caffeine enters your system relative to the morning physiological storm. The coffee isn't the problem, the timing is the problem, the sequence is the problem. The combination of caffeine plus dehydration plus empty stomach plus morning hormonal surge plus overnight blood thickening is the problem. And the solution is not giving up coffee. The solution is changing when and how you introduce it into your morning. But before I give you the exact protocol, I need to address 4 other morning habits that compound this damage, because the caffeine mistake rarely exists in isolation. It's almost always accompanied by other behaviors that stack risk upon risk until the cumulative burden becomes genuinely dangerous. The second critical mistake is jumping out of bed immediately upon waking. Your alarm sounds and you're vertical within seconds, feet on the floor, standing, moving, maybe rushing to the bathroom or the kitchen. For your cardiovascular system, this is an assault. After lying horizontal for 7 to 8 hours, your blood is distributed evenly throughout your body. Gravity has been neutralized. Everything is in equilibrium. The moment you stand abruptly, gravity pulls up to a liter of blood downward into your legs and abdomen. Your heart suddenly has dramatically less blood to pump to your brain. In younger people, baroreceptors detect this pressure drop in milliseconds and trigger an immediate compensatory response. Heart rate increases, blood vessels constrict, blood pressure adjusts. The correction happens so fast you never even notice. But after age 50, and especially after 60, these baroreceptors become sluggish. Their response time increases. There's a gap, sometimes several seconds long, between the pressure drop and the compensation. During that gap, your brain isn't getting enough blood. You feel dizzy. Your vision blurs. You might see stars. You might stagger. And when the compensation finally kicks in, it often overcorrects. A massive surge of adrenaline jolts your blood pressure upward. Your heart rate spikes violently. This reflexive overcorrection can trigger dangerous arrhythmias in a heart that's already dealing with the morning hormonal storm. Falls from morning orthostatic hypotension are one of the leading causes of serious injury and death in older adults. But even without a fall, the repeated pattern of abrupt pressure drops, followed by adrenaline-driven overcorrections, is causing cumulative cardiovascular damage every single morning. The third mistake is neglecting hydration entirely until well into your morning routine. Many people don't drink any water for 30, 60, sometimes 90 minutes or more after waking. They have coffee, they shower, they get dressed, they check email, they start their commute, and their body remains in the dehydrated, hemoconcentrated, clot-prone state it was in when they woke up. Every minute you go without water after waking is another minute your heart is pumping blood that's thicker than it should be. Another minute your platelets remain abnormally sticky. Another minute the risk of a clot forming on an unstable plaque remains dangerously elevated. I cannot emphasize this enough. The single, simplest, cheapest, most immediately impactful thing you can do for your heart every morning is drink 300 to 400 milliliters of room temperature water the moment you wake up. Before anything else. Before standing up. Before coffee, before checking your phone. Water first, always. The fourth mistake is intense exercise in the early morning hours, especially without adequate hydration and nutrition first. I see this constantly. People who set their alarms for 5 a.m. to run 5 miles or hit the gym for heavy lifting or do high-intensity interval training before dawn. I'm not against morning exercise. Exercise is essential for cardiovascular health, but the timing and preparation matter enormously. Intense exercise during the first 60 to 90 minutes after waking, when cortisol is peaking, blood pressure is elevated, blood is thick, and your cardiovascular system hasn't fully transitioned from rest to wakefulness, dramatically amplifies every risk factor I've already described. You're asking a system that's already redlining to perform at maximum output. Oxygen demand from working muscles skyrockets. The heart has to pump vastly more blood, thicker blood, through constricted vessels. If there's any silent coronary disease, any plaque buildup you don't know about, the oxygen demand may exceed what those narrowed arteries can deliver. The result can be myocardial ischemia, dangerous arrhythmias, or sudden cardiac arrest. Many cases of sudden death during morning exercise happen in people who appeared completely healthy, people who exercised regularly, people who had no diagnosed heart problems, people who simply didn't know that their coronary arteries had been silently narrowing for years, and that the combination of morning physiological stress, plus intense exertion, plus dehydration, plus fasting, was more than their system could handle. If you exercise in the morning, wait at least 90 minutes to 2 hours after waking. Hydrate fully first. Eat something light. Let your cortisol normalize. Let your blood thin out. Let your cardiovascular system complete its transition, and always warm up gradually. Never go from bed to maximum effort. The fifth mistake is one that has gained enormous popularity in recent years, and it terrifies me as a cardiologist. Extreme cold exposure first thing in the morning, cold showers, ice baths, cold plunges, all performed immediately after waking when the cardiovascular system is already under maximum stress. The wellness world has turned cold exposure into a badge of discipline. Social media is flooded with influencers promoting the benefits of cold showers at dawn, improved mood, increased energy, enhanced immune function, better metabolism. Some of these benefits have legitimate scientific support in certain populations, under certain conditions, but what these influencers almost never discuss is the acute cardiovascular danger of sudden cold exposure, particularly for anyone over 50, particularly in the morning danger window. When cold water hits your skin, especially your torso, your body interprets it as a survival threat. Massive peripheral vasoconstriction occurs in seconds. Thousands of small blood vessels slam shut simultaneously. Blood pressure can spike by 30 to 60 points in moments. Your heart is forced to pump against dramatically increased resistance while simultaneously dealing with the morning cortisol surge, thick dehydrated blood, and already elevated baseline pressure. For a cardiovascular system with any degree of silent disease, any vulnerable plaque, any weakened vessel wall, this combination can be catastrophic. Plaque rupture leading to heart attack, vessel rupture leading to hemorrhagic stroke, cardiac arrhythmia leading to sudden death.